for that. They can learn and change in a state of pain and suffering, or they can learn and change in a state of joy or inspiration. So, is there a connection between our authentic self and the soul, and how do we get there? Well, I think for most of us then, we begin to, we're young and we have a lot of confusing things that happen to us in our life, and when we're young, most of our attention is on our inner world. And as we begin to grow up and we meet friends and we move to different places and we own different things, we become very consumed with the external environment. And we begin to create an identity by the people we know and the places we go and the things we do. And all of our attention goes to the external environment, and we don't want to pay a lot of attention to our inner world. So that works probably for the first 35 or 40 years of our life. And then after you experience everything that life has to offer, all of a sudden nothing's making that feeling go away. And this is the moment the soul begins to wake us up and say, pay attention, because nothing is making that feeling change. So in other words, when you can predict the feeling of everything that's going on in your life, and nothing new is happening, all of a sudden you're left with those feelings from very early on, whether it's emptiness or unworthiness or insecurity. And so then this is where people all of a sudden have to make a choice. Some people, they buy the sports car, they buy the new boat, they join the new social club, they meet new people, they have affairs, they go on vacation to a new place, they buy new things. But when the novelty of all of those events wear off, here comes that feeling again. And so then other people, they begin to look at those emotions and they don't want to keep that facade going on any longer. In other words, this is how we appear to the world. This is the facade, this is the identity, this is the image, and this is how we really feel inside. Now, this person is identifying, creating an identity with the external world so that nobody knows how they really feel inside. Now, everybody's doing the same exact thing. So God forbid anybody finds out that we're insecure or feeling empty. So you have to keep this facade going on with your identity in the environment and your body and the way you look and how busy you are, so that you don't have to look at this. Now, some people begin to look at this feeling, and this is the midlife crisis. This is where they say, I don't love you. I don't know why I'm doing this. I don't like those people. I don't want to keep this going any longer anymore. And they begin to pay attention to this feeling. Now, there's not a lot of structure in our Western world to do that. So the moment people begin to lose their mind and they begin to tell the truth about who they are, they begin to break their emotional bonds with everybody in their life. That's when they go to the doctor and get Prozac, and there they go. They return right back to that person. But this gap between how we appear to the world and who we really are inside is based on the amount of emotions that we've memorized from past experiences. Now, when we begin, there's pain there, there's sadness there, there's unworthiness there, there's insecurity there, and we're not looking for the external environment to make this feeling go away. In other words, we start looking at how we think when we feel this way, how we act when we feel this way, and we begin to move through those emotions, and we begin to overcome them. Every time we overcome an emotion, we liberate energy, and we begin to close the gap between how we appear to the world and who we are inside, until how we appear is who we are, and we've liberated all this energy. That's the moment we call transparency. And that's the moment where the person is truly happy, no longer needing anything outside of them to make them happy, but the true happiness is coming from within them. In other words, so many people confuse pleasure and happiness. And pleasure is the accumulation of things to feel good, and happiness is coming from within. So that intelligence that's giving us life right now, that's digesting our food and organizing trillions of functions in one cell every single second, and organizing DNA, that self-organizing intelligence is looking for a crack to leak out. And when it begins to leak out, it begins to consume us. And that's the moment we become like it. We become more loving. It's a loving intelligence. We become more mindful. It's a great mind. We become more willful. It's got an amazing will. Its nature becomes our nature. We become more giving. It's a giver of life. So I think when we begin to all of a sudden realize that there's nothing wrong with the accumulation of things. But I think we've been conditioned into believing that true happiness, changing everything in our external world, and true change comes from trying to do it from the outside instead of doing it from within. And I think this is, again, really important for us, because as we begin to overcome those limited states, the body's no longer living in the past. And that's where most of our pain comes from, is when the body's living in the past. And we've measured so many people in the process of transformation. And when they get beyond their past, they're pretty unlimited people. And the side effect of that is true joy and true expression of life, which I call the natural state of being. So when people are living in this gap between how they appear to the world and how they really feel, they don't want to look at this emotion because it is painful. What they'd rather do is distract themselves from all these things in their external environment so they don't have to look. But when that feeling isn't going away, and they can't, after the sports car and after the vacation and after buying the new things, the new wardrobe, the facelift, whatever, and this feeling keeps returning, this is a time really where they have to look at that emotion. And they have to, as you said, you have to be in the presence of that emotion and ask some fundamental questions. Are these emotions driving my thoughts? How do I think when I feel this way? Now, those thoughts are just old circuits that have been fired and wired in the brain. How do I behave? What do I do? How do I act? What do I say? What comes out of my mouth? Now think about this. If you can observe how you're thinking, notice how you're acting, and pay attention to how you're feeling, the moment you become conscious of what you're unconscious to, it means you're no longer the program. Now you're the consciousness observing the program, and this is when we begin to objectify our subjective selves. And the more we can look at ourselves through the eyes of someone else, the more conscious we can become of that, the less unconscious we're prone to be in our normal life. So the word meditation, the symbol of meditation in the Tibetan language, literally means to become familiar with. So if you're becoming familiar with your unconscious thoughts and making them conscious, you're in a process of meditation. If you're becoming aware of your automatic habits and behaviors, and now you're so aware of them you would never become unaware of them again, and you look at those emotions that bring you to a lower level, and you're so familiar with your pain and your sorrow and your suffering that you would never allow yourself to live in that emotional state again. This is the moment you're Gandalf on the bridge and you're saying, you may not pass ever again. Now, when you make a decision with such firm intention that the amplitude of that decision carries a level of energy that's greater than the hardwired programs in your brain and the emotional addiction in your body, and your body begins to respond to a new mind, that's the moment the past no longer exists in your body. That's the moment you come out of your resting state, yes, and your body is getting a sampling of the future instead of living by the memory of the past. Now, think about this. How can a person in the deep south of the United States move into a state of religious ecstasy and drink strychnine and have no biological effects? How can the mother who has her child caught under the car make the decision to lift that car up and pull the child out? The mother doesn't say, hey, I had carbohydrates today and I haven't worked out in 2 weeks. She doesn't think like that. The decision is final, and the choice carries an amplitude of energy that becomes an experience that she never forgets, and that's the moment she is no longer her biology, she's no longer her body, she's no longer associated with her identity and her environment, and she is transcendent of time. So in order for us to truly change who we are, we have to begin to come out of our resting state and begin to teach the body emotionally what the future is going to feel like. Now, let me just explain this. So most people say they want abundance, but they really don't want abundance. What they really want is freedom. Some people say they want a new relationship, but they really don't want a new relationship. They want to feel and give love. Some people want success because they want to feel empowerment. They want the mystical moment to feel awe. They want a healing to feel wholeness. Now, they'll wait for the experience to happen to feel that emotion. But that's the Newtonian model of reality, of cause and effect, waiting for something outside of us to change how we feel inside of us. And when we feel better inside of us, we pay attention to whoever or whatever caused that, cause and effect. The quantum model of reality is about causing an effect, which means you have to teach your body emotionally what empowerment feels like before your success. You have to be whole before your healing. You have to be in awe before the mystical moment. You have to feel freedom and abundance before your wealth appears. And when we do that, then to the materialist it would seem really insane or foolhardy because the event hasn't happened. But to the quantum mind, though, the body is getting a sampling of the future before the experience occurs. And if we do this properly and we marry it with a clear intention, the body begins to believe it's in the future instead of in the past. And now we're defined by a vision of the future instead of a memory of the past. And so we teach people how to come out of their resting state. Unfortunately, as I said, most people wait for the crisis to come out of their resting state, and where they say this is enough. But everybody already knows how to do this, because everybody that's on this call has already done something great in their life. And what did they do? They made a decision. They had a vision. They got inspired by that vision. They decided what thoughts would support them to that vision, what behaviors and choices they were going to make. They felt enthusiastic, and they began to get their behaviors to match their intention, and they changed. Now think about it when we set out to do something and we didn't accomplish it. We got lazy, we had a vision, we got emotional, we got too busy, stress got in the way, we had social appointments, and we traded that vision for mediocrity. So we come out of our resting state and the body has to be energized with a new frequency. And we were capturing in our last workshop probably 40,000 times the amount of energy in people's brains when they did this. Now, 40,000 times the amount of energy, give you an idea. When people's brains are firing in normal, limited consciousness, we're about 10 to 60 microvolts squared of energy. We're talking about 1 million microvolts of energy in a person's brain. I mean, you can charge your iPhone with that. That is how powerful we really are. So then, as we begin to overcome those limitations that block the flow of the divine in us, as we begin to remove those layers, we begin to feel connected to something greater. And then the next challenge appears, because there's no schools of ancient wisdom in the Himalayas that you come. So when we begin to get our mind and body right, and we begin to look at what piece of knowledge could we apply to this adversity, to change something about ourselves, to get closer to source, I think that when people really begin to realize that there's no structure out there, there's structure for drugs, there's structure for alcohol, there's structure for gambling, there's structure for video gaming or overeating or shopping or all of consumerism. You take a pill and it makes that feeling go away immediately. You're going to correlate that internal change with whatever you did to take that, and you're going to develop an attachment or an addiction. And what that does is it begins to broaden the gap. And you could be the wealthiest, the most successful, the most popular person, the most good-looking person in the world, but if you haven't overcome that emotion right there, you haven't evolved in one lifetime. And this is where we have to begin to look at where we're going to make the biggest contribution to ourselves, because as we begin to understand that the soul cannot create a future experience, and the soul wants to really have new events and novel experiences, if you're living by the same emotion every single day, and you're anchored emotionally in your past, and your body's been conditioned emotionally to be in the past, then until you overcome that emotion, the soul can't get on with creating anything new, because for the most part, you're bound to a past experience. So when we begin to overcome the emotions, then we're literally pulling our mind out of the past, and that's when we begin to create a new future.
We are continuing with Complete the Quote Challenge. Your task here is to complete the inspiring quote or statement that we choose for you. can you complete the challenge and give us the right answer? If you can, and if you can do it first, you're the daily winner. All you need to do is to write the correct answer in comments below the video. In the previous video we were looking for 2 words of the Joe Dispenza's quote. The quote goes like this: as long as we are living by the hormones of stress, we are living as a materialist, because the hormones of stress cause us to believe that the outer world is more real than the, and the correct answer is inner world. So, as long as we are living by the hormones of stress, we are living as a materialist, because the hormones of stress cause us to believe that the outer world is more real than the inner world. Congratulations to everyone with the correct answer. I'm not surprised so many of you knew the right answer. After all, you are all Joe Dispenza's fans. But we'll see how you do today. Today we are looking for 2 words, and the quote belongs to Dr. Joe Dispenza also. The quote goes like this: master the next moment, and ultimately you'll write your answers in comments below the video. Even if you're not sure, you can try and guess and become a daily winner. Subscribe and hit the bell button so you don't miss my new videos and challenges. Did you like this video? If you did, give your thumbs up and share it with your friends. If you really like what we do here and want to support us, you can join our channel and our community for a symbolic fee and gain many other additional features. You can do that by clicking the join button next to the subscribe button, or you can click on the link in the description of this video.